So data sharing. So why do we share our data, or what is the motivation for doing this? Certainly, one of the reasons is for openness and transparency. I think if you're not sharing your data, it can be perceived as hiding your data and your results, right? And so if you're going to hide your data and results, then it raises questions as to the validity of the research or the outcomes or observations that you've had. And so by making your data and code and everything publicly available, it opens things up and makes your research or whatever you're doing transparent, so that people can see what you've done, take a look at your analyses or whatever it is, and get the feeling, or hopefully not get the feeling that you're hiding something, just that it's out there, and that you've done your work with a clear, conscious, and honest intent. It also allows for innovation and collaboration. If your data is there and up on a public repository, other people can find it and potentially think of different ways of working on it, or include you in sort of aggregated analyses and that sort of thing. And that would be the data synthesis component. And currently, many of our funders actually require us to make our data open and accessible. And so I guess you could fight them, but really it's becoming mandatory in a lot of cases. And so of course there are challenges with this. We have different types of data. You have personal information that you may not want accessible. And so many of the models allow for that. You have things that you don't want necessarily want visible immediately, and so you can put embargoes on it. And of course, there are intellectual property rights issues. And so this is a big thing for industry, right? They like to keep things under wraps so that they can, make a profit from it. And whereas academia, we're kind of losing those. We're losing those rights that business has, but they do exist and they can be taken into account. And of course, some of the other issues with archiving or making our data available is just sheer size. Like how, although I can't really imagine it this day and age, you could have a data set that's just too big to make available publicly. I'm not sure that's really a valid argument anymore, but it certainly has been in the past. So as we think about licensing and sharing our data, there are a couple of things or principles that we need to take into account, or that we would like to take into account, and those are the FAIR and CARE principles. And so FAIR is the idea that our data is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And so by putting our data up on an open repository, it should become findable. It will show up in search engines, or people can easily access it or locate it by looking in appropriate search engines or cert repositories. Accessible, of course, once it's there, they should be able to download it and work with it. Interoperable is the idea that different systems can interpret and understand the data and work with it. And reusable, again, is one of the key ideas of the Living Data Project, is that it's all there. There's enough information so that people can download it and understand the data to be able to use it for whatever application they're thinking of using it for. The CARE principles take into account sort of an indigenous way of thinking about things, although it's not. It's come out of the idea of indigenous data governance, but really it's a broader term or broader kind of philosophy than that. And it's the idea that we have these data and we should be able to manage them or make them available according to specifically indigenous cultures and kind of their way of thinking about things, right? And so CARE takes into is the idea that the data will be used as for the collective good, and that that as a sorry. And that Indigenous cultures have control over their data. And that by, if we have data that is sourced from an Indigenous community, that it isn't just thrown out there for everyone to use, that they do have some say over how things are used, and that's going to be used responsibly and ethically and according to Indigenous knowledge and belief systems. And of course, there's more information on these. I provide the links in the slides, which are available to you now and after this. Okay. So for reusing data, it kind of comes back to why you would make it available, but some of the benefits are that it becomes citable. Once you've got it on a repository, it does get a DOI, and so it does become citable, which is very appealing to many people. And so you're getting credit for the work that you've done. There are a couple of ways you can find the data, and so there are a couple of sites, the data sites, search engines that will do things. Many of the data repositories now are searchable by Google and will show up in a data search using the Google Dataset search engine, as well as a couple of other websites and tools. So what you need to do for the internship is we're going to need you to review the license types and figure out what is going to be a good fit for you. See if there are any permissions or any company or corporate policies that you need to take into account. And so federal government, I think they're very specific about where the data goes, as opposed to just being able to put it up on a repository. It probably needs to go on the government data portal.